Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I think it's afternoon, but good morning, good afternoon. It is a beautiful Sunday, and I just wanted to talk about two movies, awesome movies, lifetime movies. The Neighbor Who Saw Too Much. I'm gonna talk about that, and also Abducted by My Teacher. I'm gonna always speak upon violence against women. So if you are not for that, then you're not for me, and this channel is not for you. My channel is so unique. I'm gonna always talk about different things. I talk about social issues, I talk about religion, I talk about the arts. I talk about music. I go to a lot of concerts, so you're gonna always see that in my short stories. You're gonna always I'm a very versatile person. Um, I love all genres of music. I just wanted to make a quick PSA announcement for the people who go to the Metropolitan Opera House. If you're in the New York City area, they are having their first musical called The Fame or Rent Pay something. Not Rent Pay. I'm thinking about work, but I think it's called Rent. No, what is it called? But anyway, if you look it up, um the opera house is for operas, generally speaking, but they about to have their first musical, and it looks like it might be good. I don't know, I might want to go see it. I gotta go check it out. But that's something new. The Metropolitan Opera House in New York is I think about 100 years old, so this is their first musical, so this is big, this is huge. Just wanted to make that quick announcement. And so I love the arts. I love anything, any good movie, good book. Like the previous video, I talked about Alfred Bloomingdale. I gotta order that book. And so today I just wanted to talk about predators and the red flags of predators. So in the first movie that I saw last night, it was called The Neighbor Saw Too Much, The Neighbor That Saw Too Much. That is a Lifetime movie. I don't know if it's based on a true story or not, but it's about a girl who lived with her sister, and her sister was her guardian because the parents had passed away. Um, Not together, but the father had passed away and then the mom passed away. So the sister got legal guardianship of her sister. So they move into this house, and the sister is a flight attendant. So naturally, like any teenager with a big space, or even sometimes a small space, she threw a party. I think that's normal. That's most teenagers will do that. I don't think my son would do that. He's not shy, but I just can't see him doing that. But sometimes kids get influenced to do that, whatever. Um, Luckily, I don't have a job where I have to travel, because that's tough, and they say legally. Um, so just some quick facts. In New York City, and it's the only place I've ever lived. I visit other places, but actually living somewhere. In New York City, legally, you could leave your 8-year-old for a couple of hours. You cannot, anybody under the age of 17, and this is for New York, the legal age is 17. Also, like to be in cahoots with an adult sexually is 17. That's how, like, R. Kelly would always ask his victims how old they were, and they would say 17. And so a lot of them, he was able to get away with it because they were legal, right? He went to jail for being abusive, which is something totally different. But we're not talking about R. Kelly today. But so um, the girl got in trouble by, I guess you could call the caseworker, um, or what do you call a social worker? The girl that be questioning them and was like threatening her, like, oh, you can't leave her by herself, but for so long, she's still a minor. She's like, yeah, but I'm an airline stewardess. What do you want me to do? Like, this is how I provide for myself. This is my job. So, the lady was like, okay, you just gotta, I guess set boundaries with her or something, because her throwing parties and having alcohol, and then the neighbor called that's not cool. She's still a minor. So she grounded her, and the neighbor, that's attractive or whatever, he called the police, and the evidence was, so this girl was onto him because she was like, hold up, while we was doing this party, I saw him by the window with a hoodie, and I love her character because she stand up for herself. Sometimes even as an adult you can it could be intimidating with somebody, but she was like, I saw you in the window. So because he approached her like, oh, I heard what happened last night. And she was like, yeah, you called the cops on me, didn't you? He was like, no, that wasn't me. That was Miss Henry. She's older. She's an old lady. She can't handle, loud music. But that was him, because the fact, like me personally, my personality, I'm going to come to you. I love kids. So if I know somebody is struggling or whatever, I would offer my services like, hey, I got a teenager. Maybe they could hang out together or whatever while you at work, whatever. I'm not going to call the police. Like, that's corny. But some people are like that. We live in a society of very weird, evil people. So it was obvious he called the police. So that was strike one for her. So strike two, even though she was grounded because of that, the sister still allowed her to have company. So her best friend came over, and so she sees, and the best friend too, and that was like a really good part of the movie because it's two people watching the same thing with a different perspective. So from her perspective and mine too, me as the audience watching it, was him strangling a female in the window, right? So that's when she saw too much, and she was like, yo, that's wrong what he did. And now the girl missing, and it's all over the news. She's like, yo, this girl, because she saw it from her window, the girl came over with pink and blonde hair, like, yo, that's the same hair. So the best friend is like, oh, you don't know if he killed her. You don't know if what you saw. She's like, what you mean? You saw the same thing I did. Like, what's wrong with you? But it just shows you like two people could see the same thing and have a different perspective. The best friend didn't think, oh, he's a killer, but she knew within herself, and that's what I wanted to stress to, at the sound of my voice, any woman, teenager, if you see a violent act towards a woman, follow that instinct and follow your gut, because in this story, she was right. So this guy, because of who he is, he moves on to her sister. So at this point, it really is her business because he starts dating the sister. So he invited her over for dinner. For me, that's a red flag because I don't know you. Why you invite me to your home? So she played it smart. She brought her sister with her, but most people would be like, no, I'm not going over there. I saw him attack a woman and choke her. I'm not going to his house. But she went to the house, and she was like, in her mind, she's like, I'm going to find something to frame him, or I'm going to look for evidence, whatever. So she asked to go to the bathroom, but she ended up in the room. So he offered to like give the sister a book. So he went up there and he's like, what are you looking for? So he was on to her like, okay, she must be on to me. Like, because a person that's a predator or guilty of something, they're going to always be one step ahead of you. Never let them know you on to them. That's what I'm learning from these movies. Like, because guess what? It could happen to you. Sometimes you watch a movie and you like, oh, whatever, that could. No, it could happen to you. And little things that I've been through, I've never came across a killer, but, predators are just, they're everywhere, right? So this man turned out to be a serial killer. Like, he was just killing people left and right. He would invite them over, and then you would never hear from them again. So she got smart. So the next woman that he invited over or whatever, she snuck into his house and put like a tissue on fire. And the best friend was like, oh, it's a fire next door. So that kind of derailed and disrupted the date. She saved the girl life pretty much. So that was nice of her, to do that. And so the sister, the part that I hated about the movie, like I thought the sister was like a tag team member for his killing, because I'm like, it was so odd to me because the sister kept defending him, like, and it was weird because it's not like she was in a relationship with this man. She didn't know this man. They had just moved to the neighborhood and they went on 2 dates. And to me, it's not even really dates. It's just he cheap and he wanted to get in her pants and kill her. Cause the second date was a picnic. There's nothing wrong with a picnic, but I know for me, I did a picnic once. We were already together for like 2 years, and then we didn't have anything to do one day. I think it was COVID, and we were just like, you know what? I never had a picnic. I would never do that shit again because the ground is hard. Like the ground is hard. Even if you have a blanket, I forgot who blanket it was. I don't know if it was mine or his, but we laid it on the ground and it was hard. It was like, that's not comfortable. But on TV, it looks so cute and romantic. No, like, that shit is a dub, like, But, yeah, so, naturally, the sister, being the sister that she is, she followed them, which is the rightful thing, because he was going to hurt her. Like, he had the rope in the back of his truck, and when she turned her back, he was touching the rope, like, and she turned around, and he's like, oh, he was going to strangle her. And she's like being defiant to her sister. She's not listening to it. It was just weird to me because it's like, you don't know this man. Your sister's trying to warn you about this man, and it's like, come on. But then the good part about the picnic was he wasn't telling her anything. So I wanted to talk about that. Like, anytime a man doesn't want to talk about his past, that is a red flag, ladies. That he is hiding something. Either he's hiding a family, a wife, something. Because if y'all are dating and he's trying to get to know you and vice versa, for him to be like, oh, I don't want to talk about my parents. I don't want to talk about. Now, it's different if he be like, I don't speak to this particular family member. I don't want to talk about it. At least like, okay, he don't speak to his mom, dad, whatever. But if a person just straight say, oh, I don't want to say anything about my life, that's a red flag. He didn't want to talk about his life because he's a fucking killer, right? So the sister knew, like, okay, something's wrong. I just sat here and told him that my mom and dad passed, and he knows I'm taking care of my sister. He knows stuff about me I don't know about. And that's one of my pet peeves, too. And you got women that do that to other women. Like, they'll sit there and ask you a bunch of questions, and then when you ask them, they don't want to tell you. I hate that because I'm a very open and honest person. And so if I'm telling you things about myself and then I'm like, tell me something about yourself, and you're like evasive, that's the quickest way to get rid of me. Because what are you hiding? That's so annoying to me. Like, no, I'm not going to sit. And now that I'm getting older, I'm very, very cautious about telling people things. Like, I was never that type. I was always like to myself. But yeah. So yeah, she told her sister that. And so the sister's like, oh, now you believe me. Now you see, she still didn't believe her, but she, definitely paid attention to that. Like, yeah, he didn't want to tell me nothing about himself. So the sister trying to warn her, like, hello, he's a killer. Like, so she goes into his garage and she finds some evidence, like and then she Googles it and she finds out that he the kiss of death killer. So he uses their blood to make the kiss mark, and it's not lipstick, it's blood. So it's crazy. And then the sister didn't believe her until the very end of the movie, where they find the body of the girl that went missing. So at that point, the sister believed her, and she's like, and then he threatened to kill her friends. The friend didn't believe her. So I'm watching it like, yo, one of them got to be a part of the bullshit, because why is it that nobody believes her? I thought that was just so weird, and in the end, the sister stood up for her. So it ended on a good note, and it made them closer as sisters to trust each other. And that's the message I wanted to relay today. Like, a lot of times people don't trust people and what they say. You have to trust the person. You know, her thing was, oh, you thought horses was in the backyard when you was little. That's when she was little. She's almost an adult now. Like, this is something serious, you know. And even with my son, like, he lies a lot, but certain things I know he's not gonna lie about. You know, certain things that's really serious. Like, I'm gonna believe him. That's my child, you know. And I think that's important to listen to people when they telling you something serious, you know. It's important to trust it and don't go against that, because the sister could have been another victim. You know, she wasn't listening and stuff like that. And you know, she let him know, like, hey, I'm not interested in nothing serious, but we could be cool. But regardless of the fact, for me, if somebody's telling me like, yo, he had a female in his house the night before, I'm gonna proceed with caution anyway, because let's just say he not a killer and he's just a regular nigga. If he got females in his house frequently, and then he want to talk to you, like, that sound like drama, because one of them could pop up at the house. Like, it's different when y'all are hanging out and whatever, but it's like you go into his house and then he have other females going to the house. Like, it just sound messy. I wouldn't want to. If my sister, I don't have any siblings, but if my friend is telling me, yo, I seen a female in his, especially if you live in a neighborhood, like me personally, I've never dated a neighbor. Like, when you live in an apartment, so like where my parents live at, which is Linden Plaza, shout out to Linden Plaza, East New York, it's a very huge complex. So it was one guy, two guys I was involved with, nothing serious, but and at different times. But it was a huge apartment complex. It's not like the projects where it's small and everybody knows like, I've been living in Brownsville 13 years. Hell no, I would never date nobody up in here. But in Plaza where I grew up, I messed around with two guys. It wasn't no dating, nothing. But like, it's weird. I feel like people who live in houses, it's weird to like date somebody next door, because you gotta deal with them. You're gonna see them in the supermarket. You're gonna see them. I don't know. I just feel like it's weird. Like, some people feel like they don't want to date somebody at work. It's nothing wrong with dating somebody at work. You just gotta be mature when things go left to still be professional. And some people don't know how to do that. So that's why they say, oh, it's not good to date somebody at work. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Just be mature. Plenty of people meet, date, and get married from workplaces. It's, whatever. But like, as far as, and I know people who their wife, they got married to their next door neighbor. So it works out for some people. But I don't know, for me personally, I just wouldn't want to do that, because it's where you live. You know what I'm saying? It just seemed weird. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to date somebody that, especially like, I live in a really bad neighborhood. So like, most people over here ain't no good. And men who live in the projects, they live with somebody. They don't get their own apartment. And no, they live with somebody. That's because it's the city. So, whatever. But just in general, like, I would be skeptical. But her house was like right next to his, and it was just weird. But yeah, the name of it is The Neighbor Saw Too Much. And it's just a classic case of, you need to trust your people. When somebody's telling you about somebody, listen. Listen to that instinct. Now, the movie I saw this morning, child. Oh, child. So, Abducted by My Teacher is based on a true story by Elizabeth Thomas. So, Elizabeth Smart was, I think she was like the first one on Amber Alert. No, the girl name was Amber. But Elizabeth Smart went missing and was found, like, I think the early 2000s. And since then, she's been making movies on Lifetime, and she's doing really good. And comment, like, and subscribe. I didn't realize how sick our society was until the R. Kelly thing. Naturally, when you hear about minors and sex with adults, or I should say rape with adults, being groomed. Normally people are on the victim side, but this story just was so crazy to me because people were actually blaming her and calling her Jezebel and a seductress and all of this stuff. And I'm like, what? Oh my God. Well, first of all, I wanted to briefly talk about Jezebel since it's Sunday and stuff. Jezebel was the wife of Aaron, and she was a murderer. Nowhere does it say that she was a whore. Nowhere does it say that she. So I don't know how people just like assume all these things about Jezebel. Jezebel was a murderer, right? She murdered Jews. She wrong for that. Whatever. But the thing that people, the reason why Jezebel is such a hated person in the Bible is because she was a woman in power. Anytime a woman stands up for herself, she's going to be considered a villain. If you really study history, Eve stuck up for herself because she didn't want to walk around like an animal no more. And I was texting my coworker last night, and he made a good point. He was like, we're closely related to monkeys. I said, yeah. Now, evolution, a lot of people don't believe in evolution, but we as humans, we do evolve. We wasn't always eating with forks and eating out of plates. There was a time when we were very barbaric, including, I don't think, now the theory is that Africans came on the planet first and Europeans were barbaric and they didn't know what they was doing and we taught them everything. I think there were Africans that were barbaric too. I don't think not all Africans like knew what to do, because look at them now. You have tribes in Africa where they are completely like living in huts, and not all of them are fly. So I think it depends on the tribe. I think it depends on who was in charge of the tribe, um, things of that nature. So you had Adam and Eve, and she wanted something different, right? They was walking around naked. She didn't have a period. They didn't have any children. Everybody else had children, like all the other animals, and they were the only ones walking around naked. I mean, all the other animals was naked too, but she wanted something different. She craved for something different. So the devil presented her the fruit. They call it the apple, and it's interesting. Apple technology is a bitten apple, signifying from the beginning of time. I thought that was very interesting. I saw that on a documentary. But it wasn't an apple. It wasn't even a fruit. It was a metaphor to show good and evil. That's what it was. And the devil was correct when he said, you're not going to die. You're not going to surely die. So a lot of theologians say, oh, death meaning spirituality, like separation from God. If Eve didn't take of this forbidden fruit, we wouldn't be here. Because what happened after the fall? They started wearing clothes. They finally had enough sense to say, I'm naked. And in the scripture, it says, what? God said to them, who told you you was naked? So there were positive things that came out of that. She started having her period. The scripture says you're gonna have bad periods and it's gonna hurt when you give birth. Yeah, so what? That if that didn't happen, we would not be here, right? All those thousands of years, she obviously didn't have a period because there were no children. Once she honestly did that, yeah. So whatever. But back to what I was saying, what they was calling her Jezebel, they were saying, oh, she seduced him. Now he was 52 years old. How the fuck is she's 15? She was practically a virgin, naive to the world, and she gonna seduce him. I feel like anybody who thinks that is sick. You are sick in the head, and you need to get tested. And time again, every time it's a young girl, a child, that child gets blamed for what happens to them. It's a very sick society. And it's too many people that think that that's okay, that think that that's normal, that it's okay for and the child could be 5 years old. What they gonna do? They gonna blame the parent. Oh, like it could be somebody babysitting, or you could send your child to daycare. If somebody does something to your child, they gonna be like, well, you shouldn't have sent them to that daycare. How the fuck the parent gonna know that they abuse it? Like, why is it that the predator don't get the blame, but the victim gets the blame, or the victim's parent gets the blame? Like, we live in a very sick society. So I'm watching this movie, and this girl went through so much. Like, and she was smart. She told her sister when she was leaving, if you don't hear from me by 9 o'clock, call the police. Why did she go? So the part that people not understanding is she willfully went. She did not willfully go. And that's why, and they said that the movie is triggering. For me, it's like, it's not really triggering, but it's like, it's something I could understand, because you have men, young and old, it's not just old men, that will tell a girl, if you don't be with me, I'm going to kill myself. If you don't be with me, this is what I'm going to do to you and your family. He threatened her. He said that if she didn't leave with him, he was going to hurt her family. He had a gun. So this, imagine being 15 years old and this man is saying this. Yeah, you going to go with him because you're afraid of what he's going to do to you and your family. He's saying it. He said, then he's like, oh, if you don't come with me, I'm going to kill myself. This man was sick in the head. And the crazy part is she was the first victim. He wasn't doing this all along. She was the first one that he ran away with. He actually left his wife and kids for her. Like, he was fixated on her. Whatever it was about her, but he just, like, he was sick. It has nothing to do with love. It's a sickness. So, I wanted to discuss the red flags to parents, any parent watching this, because don't think it can't happen to your child, right? So I'm going to talk about my little experience. Luckily, my son, he's never went through that because I've always been a present parent. And I know for some parents it's hard because the rent might be expensive and they have to work late shifts. And that's what happened with this girl. Her mother wasn't around. I think the mother was deceased and the father worked a lot. And she had sisters, but, they all had their own lives. And the sister would talk to her, but her older sister was immature and just glued to her phone. So, unfortunately, the teacher knew about this. And I don't like that. They was just spreading her business around the school about her family. And she was homeschooled before she came. And so that's what predators go for. Why did he go for her? It's not because she was so pretty or whatever, not to throw shade, but he went after her because she was a target, right? Don't let your child be a target. The very first red flag for me is when he said, don't call me Mr. Cummins, call me Tad. Any teacher, and I'm so serious when I say this, any teacher that tells you it's okay to call them by the first name, that is a red flag that they trying to be your friend. That's the red flag for me. And unfortunately, I know a lot of, because I worked for the DOE 9 years, you have a lot of weirdos that are predators and they are, they want to be friends with the kids. Very strange people. Now, not all of them are having like relations with them and raping them, but you have a lot of strange people that work for the DOE or work with kids in general. So that was the first red flag for me watching the movie. The second red flag is inviting her out. It's not the fact that he invited her to church. It's just inviting the student out, but you're not saying, oh, and bring your mom. Oh, bring your, and parents. I can't stress this enough. If your child comes to you and says, oh, my teacher invited me out, guess what? When my son got invited to church, and this was 2 years ago, and his teacher's church is actually really good, Vincent Bohannon, whatever. Guess what? I came right along with him. Yes, I did. because I don't trust no fucking body. As much as times as I watch Lifetime, girl, bye. And also, I know the signs because there were predators in my school. Not towards me, but there was a girl, and it's sad because people slut shame her, but she had an affair with the dean's brother. Now, this man is old as he had gray hair back when we was in school. And she's a year older than me, and she has a kid by this man. And so nobody looks at that and says, yo, he's a predator. Everybody looks at her like, oh, she's a slut and da-da. Like, her past and what she did before him doesn't matter. Like, yeah, she was sexually active and had abortions, but I remember talking to my homeboy, like, that has nothing to do with what he did. He is a predator. He was like, but don't you remember, she used to hang out in the dean office? It doesn't matter. He's out of line. He crossed the line. Her mother did not send her to school to get fucked and to get pregnant. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very unfortunate, and I feel sorry for her because I don't think she realizes that. Maybe she realizes now, but it wasn't a love thing. He manipulated her, he groomed her. She probably thought she was in love with him, and he treated her bad. Like, he used to do disappearing acts to the point that she would put it on Facebook and be looking for him. And I'm like, if he's your man, why are you looking for him? And then he did, he used to date one of the other teachers, and they actually went to prom together because the school is old, like from the 70s. So they have a son together, and then that teacher, was close with the student, and then she kind of like went with him. So that's like betrayal. But he's nasty because she was a student at the school. Like, I don't care. Even when it first happened and we all first heard about it, because she graduated 2006, I graduated 2007. We all found out about them being together like maybe 3 years later. And it was like, ew, why is she with the dean's brother? All of us had the same reaction, like, ew, what is he doing? She was a student, even though at this point she's like 2021. It's like, for them to have a kid, that means he groomed her. That means that he was looking at her like that when she was a student. So it's very, very, very common. It's very, very common. And so some people might look at that, which a lot of people in my school. So that's how I'm able to look at movies and have sympathy and empathy, because people in my school slut shamed girls. Even there's another girl in my school. She had a kid with the janitor. And so everybody's like, ew, da 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 da. Nobody's saying, oh, he's a predator, except for me. I'm the only one that's like, yo, he nasty. Because again, they had a kid. Now, by the time they had a kid, it was like 2010, 11. And yes, she was grown. But he's still nasty because how did they meet? She was a student in the fucking school and he was a janitor, right? So that's two people we know that was staff. Well, the dean's brother, he wasn't staff. He just would be there. I don't know if he was unemployed, whatever. But he used to be there. And I feel like he hung around to recruit a young girl. Because thinking back on it, he didn't even work in the school. He was just, he was the nephew of the principal. And the principal and assistant principal of my high school were sisters. And then his mom, she was the financier, she was the one that collected the tuition. And then his brother was the dean/economics teacher. So he was able to kind of come in and whatever. But little did we know that he was grooming the girl. He had to be fucking her for her to pop up with a baby. Because her baby, she has 2 kids. So the first kid was born like 07. And then she had a kid right after in like 2009 or 2008, like right after. Because I had my son in 08. But he's a groomer. I see him as a groomer because there's no way that she was hanging around him. Because I remember my homeboy was like, yeah, she always hung around the dean office. The dean's brother was always there. So they probably started messing around from that time, probably. Because we just couldn't understand, like, why all the girls hanging around the dean office. They wasn't hanging around for the dean. He didn't do nothing with nobody. He remained professional. It was the brother that was messing around with the girls. And one particular girl, he gave her a baby. And nobody sees that as sick. They're slut shame. Everybody's looking at this particular student like, oh, well, she was a hoe back in the day anyway. I'm like, I don't care what she did before him. Because obviously, what I was told from her friend, we had a mutual friend. She was like, oh, her parents let her do whatever she want to do. It's not that. It's just she's probably was a little rebellious. And when kids get a certain age, what can you really do, right? But I always felt bad for her and I never judged her. I was like, she's looking for love. And now she's with an even older guy. The guy looked like he 80 years old. So it's something missing there. It's definitely, I mean, things happen, but the fact that she was with the dean's brother in her early 20s and then now she's with another older guy, it's something lacking in her life. And I don't judge. My situation, I have my father in my life, but dudes be lying to me about their age. Like, and like I said, I didn't get involved with an older man until I was 29. So that's very different. I never looked at an older man like, oh yeah, I want to. So back to with this story, she was naive, she didn't have any friends, and he would say things to her like, oh, your family don't care about you. And I wanted to stress that I don't care if it's a friend, family member, anybody that says to you, oh, your family don't care about you, please run from them. Because what they're doing is they're trying to manipulate you into believing that they care about you. Somebody who cares about you and you're 15, they're not going to, if they're an adult, they're not going to have sex with you. Straight up and down. It's wrong. It's manipulative. You might think it's love, but in the long run, it is not. He used her as a sex toy. And it took for the authorities to arrest him for her to realize that. And I'm happy that her sister was smart enough to tell the police, like, because she told her, if I'm not back by 9 o'clock, call the police. So why did she willfully go with him? Because he said he was going to harm himself if she didn't come with him. That is what you call manipulation, and don't think it can't happen to you, because it can happen to anybody, okay? These men are very calculating, and young men do it too. How many women are stuck in relationships because the man is threatening to kill himself, right? Or they're just stalking the girl, right? That happens to a lot of people, where the person just blowing up your phone and you 18, 17, you're not used to getting that attention. And then you could tell a parent and they don't do nothing about it. It's just, you gotta, for me, I knew not to keep going back to the person, but my parents didn't do nothing about it. So it is very possible. So when I watch these movies, it's not necessarily triggering, it's just comforting to be like, wow, people have been through it on a higher level than me, on a much larger scale, because people don't sit and try to ask you, well, what led you to do this or end up with this person? They just judge you and they slut shame you. And we have to change as a society. It's so many people that just will sit there and blame you for everything. They don't be like, well, did the guy stalk you? Did he come to your house and he said he was waiting downstairs? And and you're 18, you're 17, you're 19. The brain is not fully developed, right? We're not talking about a grown woman in her 20s. We're talking about a 15-year-old. She has never had that attention from anybody, right? So put yourself in her shoes. She's getting jewelry from this man. This man is saying that he love and care for her. This man kissing her. They having sex in a room. She don't know what to do. She like kind of frozen because it's like, it feels good to be appreciated, but I know it's wrong. So she was very like confused, and I could only realize what that feels like. Like, if nobody teaches you that, like,
most of us was taught by our parents, our moms especially, don't let nobody touch you in certain areas. um this is what you come home and you, and I teach my son that too. I always taught him, anything that's going on in school, you tell me. And he told me everything from teacher putting tape on his friend hands to everything. Even when his teacher invited him to church, I'm right there because I don't trust no fucking body. So they were talking about her after the whole ordeal. Remember, she came back home safe and sound, thank God. So people were saying on the internet how she seduced him by the dress she wore in church. I'm like, you can't make this shit up. Because people say stuff like that. Oh, what did you wear to turn him on? This man was 52, she was 15. He was a sick fuck. Then she gets a new job because the job she had, he helped her get. So that's another reason why she probably felt like she owed him because he helped her get a job. And you have people that's sick in the head like that, like, oh, well, he helped her get a job, so what, she thought she was going to get it for free? Just because somebody helped you get a job, that don't mean that you should open your legs. But nobody taught her that. She didn't know. So she probably feeling in herself, well, he loved me, so I gotta do this, you know. But then she realized after it was wrong. Like, she woke up. She didn't try to be with him after. So that's the good part. But this man done lost his job. That's how he wasn't mentally together. Because he lost his job and everything. And he thought that they was just going to ride into the sunset. Like, what you going to do with no money and no job? How you going to provide for yourself and her? I think he planned on killing her. I think that's because he was going to go in the water and somebody had to stop them from going in the water. He was like, oh, we going to ride a boat to Mexico. He wasn't mentally stable. That's how he lost all his senses. But thank God, that was God. Somebody stopped them from going into the water. Like, yo, it's about to be a hurricane. I can't let you go out there. I just got a message on my phone from my supervisor. Y'all can't go out there. It's a hurricane. So comment, like, and subscribe. Parents, no matter how busy you are, please tell your children what's appropriate and not appropriate with teachers. There were so many red flags. Another red flag is he was having lunch with his students. That's very common. I think that's weird. You should never be having lunch with a student. Go to the teacher's lounge. So, and it's so common, people spending their lunch break. This is your break. Why you don't want to break from the kids? That's a red flag. And so I was reading up on it that her sister came with her and was like, she felt like Tad Cummins was weird. He was just weird. Like, you could just feel it, like, this dude is weird. So and in some cases, a lot of guys that's older, they didn't really have a chance to really date in high school. And so once they become a teacher or somebody of importance, they want to be young again. As stupid as that sounds, I think that's what it really is. It's the lack of maturity. They want that attention to be like, oh. And with that girl, she's so strong and courageous, because that could make somebody depressed and suicidal, that people are slut shaming her, saying, oh, she seduced him and she's a Jezebel. And then she had a woman come to her and was like, he had a family and a wife. How dare you, have an affair with him? It wasn't an affair. An affair is two consenting adults that are having consensual sex, and the man is married. That's an affair. That is grooming. The fact that he gave her jewelry, he got her a job, he told her things like, nobody cares about you but me. He manipulated her all the way. And this was the first time she got attention from the opposite sex. So I could see, why she fell for it. And she did not willfully go with him. He said that he was going to harm himself. He said that he was going to harm her family. And he had a gun. So that's entrapment. Straight up. And the fact that he only got 20 years, it makes me sick to my stomach. Like, we need to make stronger laws to protect our children. She didn't want him. It wasn't no romance. Now, in some cases, yes. In this case, no. You know, you do have student-teacher relationships where the student does want to be with the person and whatever. But in most cases, it's manipulation, it's grooming. And in this case, it was all of that. Because if she really wanted to be with him, she would have said it. She didn't say it. It's he was like, oh, let's go and ride to the sunset. And the fact that he threatened to kill her family, and then the reason why the sister called the police and they had a goose chase for her is the fact that